Welcome to the Free to Be Free portal, where we bring you spiritual content. I'm your host, Julia Ananda, and I'm here with Gene Key's guide, Margaret Miller. We'll be talking about the energy of the week, including slowing down and clearing out, and coming into alignment with is what is most essential for you. Margaret, thank you so much for being here today and bringing forth your insights for the energy of this week, including the full moon in Scorpio.
You are so welcome, and thanks for uh, always holding such a beautiful space for us to um, connect and to explore these insights. So, yes, so today, and actually starting uh, a couple days ago, we have moved into the 23rd gene key, meaning that the sun is now in the degrees of Taurus that include this 23rd gene key, which is the shadow of complexity, the gift of simplicity, and the siddhi of quintessence. And I love that word. It's such a great word. And yeah, I it'll be interesting to see how this comes out because this has been quite a journey for me the past couple of days. I've been really in the depths of moving through this, and so maybe that was just in preparation for this today, talking about it today, and finding myself, finding oftentimes we find ourselves in this shadow of complexity because look at the world, look at it's reflected to us in so many different ways where we think that we need all kinds of things that we don't need. We think that we require many things when actually our needs are very basic, and it's more of this complicating the mind, and we've done this over and over again, throughout human history, where we think more is better when it isn't necessarily right. Sometimes enough is enough. And so when we look at complexity, the shadow of complexity, there's there's a lot of different ways that it manifests in our lives, and it can be too much stuff for one thing, like really having too much stuff, or trying to go for too much stuff, overthinking things, worrying. The ways that it manifests in our being is can be worrying, or getting so frustrated because we can't find the solution, looking for solutions and not being able to find them. And oftentimes I want to talk about the sort of the repressive and reactive natures of this. In the Gene Keys book, Richard Rudd talks about the repressive nature and the reactive nature of each of the shadows. And in this case, the repressive nature is this feeling of being mute or struck dumb, right? And even the word dumb in our society has now, it means a lack of intelligence now, whereas in previous times it meant an inability to speak or express yourself, right? And so that's considered like less intelligent, and so it complicates the energy of someone who is feeling, you know they're frozen by fear. they can't speak their truth. They can't speak what's wanting to come out. This is very personal to me, because it's the shadow of one of my gene keys in my gene keys profile, and so I'm very aware of it. And the key for me is to slow down, right? And to take a pause. And so the reactive side of this shadow is over speaking, over explaining, trying to get somebody to understand what you're talking about, and just filling the space with words after words after words, and complicating the issue even further. And so it comes out as very fragmented. And, it's not that, for myself even, it's not that I have eliminated the shadow, because that's not the point. It's just an awareness of it, so that when I find myself wondering or worrying if I'm not being understood, allowing myself to take that pause and to check in with myself and then move forward. So that's just like one example of how that works. And it can be a complexity in any aspect of our lives. And it can be out there in the world, or it can be just inside of our own minds, it can be inside of our houses. This incredible clutter that can just make things very, very difficult to move through. So how do we come out of those shadow states? And this particular shadow of complexity is by slowing down and simplifying in whatever way we possibly can. And to me, that always includes clearing my space, and on the physical level, as well, the mental level, the emotional level, and the spiritual level, right? Really touching in with all of those areas, or all of those parts of my being, and making sure that there's space, there's expansiveness, right? And so literally last evening, I went through everything in my space. I live what is called a sort of a simple life, a sort of in demonstration of this, because I live in a yurt. But I went through everything in my yurt last night, and eliminated the things that I don't need and that aren't beautiful. Okay, so that's the test. Is it useful, or is it beautiful? And is it useful and beautiful? Great, keep it. If it's beautiful and you love it, keep it. If it's essential and you need it, keep it. Right? If it's both, awesome. If it's neither, what is it doing in your space? Right? So that's another way of, like looking at, and there's so many people that do beautiful work around, like decluttering our spaces and so forth. But that physical act of clearing then allows for this sort of emotional space, right? This feeling of, I can relax now more. I can allow myself to settle in. And then comes this feeling of expansiveness in the mental sphere, where we all of a sudden have more clarity. And so So this is, that simplicity is moving through our life in a way that leads us to what is required of us in each day, right? And what this day is calling for, and being able um, to meet it with with our presence and our full power, right? Because there's nothing clouding the way.
Margaret, that is such a beautiful way of looking at it. What is this day calling for? And am I open and clear and expansive enough to meet that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then as we do that more and more, even as sort of a practice in our life, and looking at that and asking the question, how can I declutter? How can I simplify? How can I come to what is essential? Then we start touching on that energy of the Siddhic, or the Siddhic frequency of quintessence. And quintessence is such a, you can feel it, right? It is about, quint is five, and essence, right, is the essential, right? The what it really is. And so it's the fifth, in a way, it's the fifth element, the fifth essence, right? And it's the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence. So it's honing things down to the point where, and refining and distilling like an essential oil down to the absolute truth of something, right? That's the quintessence. And I highly recommend listening to Richard Rudd's audio on the 23rd gene key. You can find it at genekeys.com /pulse. Okay, because that's the gene keys of the week. I really highly recommend listening to it, because he talks about this in such a beautiful way, that he talks about it coming down to that quintessence is the what's called in Buddhism the wish fulfilling jewel, right? And it's, or the chintamani. And so that I bring that up for several reasons. And one is that it happens to relate to one of the Sabian symbols that I'm going to be talking about in a moment. But as you know, you can feel how as we clear away, allow ourselves the space, create the space for that simplicity, like simplifying in whatever way works for us, in whatever way is calling to us, and for me, it always involves that clearing of my physical space, especially, or just going outside and sitting in nature or walking in nature, something simple to clear, right? And to slow down, or some breath work, or some kind of a slowing down process. So without too much more, I think I want to go into the Sabian symbols, because I have a lot to cover with a full moon coming up as well. And it's so beautiful how this is the synchronicity of this. And I really truly trust that the synchronicities always happen more when when we're in that, more simplified space, or that when we're really touching on the quintessence of our being and our lives, then the synchronicities start happening very, very powerfully. And, I could tell stories for days about the synchronicities that are going on when I'm in that state of really understanding what is essential for myself, right? And so, yeah, I just love this. I love this gene key, and I love this contemplation as well. So I'm going to start with we talked about actually a couple of the gene keys in the last, or I'm sorry, the Sabian symbols in the last video, because they don't overlap in a very precise manner. The Sabian symbols round up, a degree. So if it's 21 degrees 6 minutes, it still goes to 22 degrees. Okay, so they don't match exactly. And it was hilarious actually, because it caused this incredible level of complexity in my mind, trying to figure out what Sabian symbol to start with when I was talking about the gene key of simplicity. And it just actually ended up cracking me up. I was laughing hysterically because I realized that I was overcomplicating something. And I just said, just start with one that's current, okay? and know that it's part of the 23rd gene key. so here we go. We're going to start with Taurus 21, which is a finger pointing to a line in an open book. So you imagine a finger pointing to a line in an open book. And the suggestion of this symbol is like learning to discern what's important, and maybe even going to an oracle or opening a book to a random page and putting your finger down and then reading what's there and receiving the message. So discerning what messages are important and meaningful to you personally, right? And to take all of the information that's out there and find, that, and notice when that finger points, right, to that open book, and to take that in and to sort of discard the rest.
I absolutely love this symbol. I often, when I need assistance, ask for spirit to help me by guiding me to a book. So I go to my bookshelf and then I choose the book that I'm guided to, and I just open it to the page and look and point. And it is extraordinary, the wisdom that comes through clearly for me in that way. Wonderful symbol.
Yes, yes. And you can see how you can do something so simple and have it have such a profound effect.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So then the next symbol, 22 Taurus, is a white dove flying over troubled waters. And so, you see the complexity and the turbulence and the chaos that happens when things are unclear, when we're confused, when we're in the shadows frequency of, when we're running our lives at that fear frequencies, things get complicated and confused and troubled really fast. And then in order for us to come out of that, we have to lift ourselves up and receive allow ourselves to receive and be open to those messages, right? In whatever way that's going to come. If, you know, receiving that guidance and allowing spirit to move through us in whatever way it does, because the dove is such a symbol of that, you know, that spirit coming in and bringing us calm and bringing us peace when there's this disturbance, when there's this trouble. Yeah, this troubled water. So then, okay, so that brings us up to the 23rd, which is interesting because it's kind of a synchronicity. It's the 23 Taurus, and it's still part of the 23rd gene key. Yeah, so this is the symbol that the full moon is in. And the full moon is on May 12th, Monday, May 12th at 12:55 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so and I'll talk about that in a moment. I'm gonna kind of try and segment that so that I don't complicate my mind too much with this. But so the symbol for this, okay, and this is why one of the reasons I was so excited about it, is a jewelry shop filled with valuable gems. Okay, this is the Sabian symbol for the full moon, is a jewelry shop filled with these most precious gems. And the meaning of it is like the gems are formed through lots of heat and lots of pressure and lots of, you know, like a very complicated process of refinement. And it isn't until they are worked and honed and cut and polished and that they become, you know, this valuable and sought after thing. And it reminded me, you know, obviously in so many ways of that Chintamani, that wish fulfilling jewel, right? Because that's what has to happen. We have to come down and down and down to the quintessence. And when we reach that, it's this shining jewel. And that's the shining jewel inside of us, right? That's the essence of who we are. That's, you know, that's what the spiritual seeker is working towards, is the uncovering of that and the honing and the refining of that to this incredible jewel. Now, this is the part that's could get a little confusing, is that the sun is in this Sabian symbol, this degree, 23 degrees of Taurus. The moon at the full moon is opposite it. Okay. And so I'm going to go into the full moon now and talk about it, and then I'll kind of finish up with the last of the Sabian symbols, okay? Because it wants to come through in this alignment, because that's what a full moon is the opposition of the sun and the moon. They're on opposite sides of the astrological wheel, right? The Taurus is always opposite Scorpio, right? In the astrological wheel. And so we have 23 degrees of Scorpio is the degree that the moon is at. Okay. So I'm going to bring in the Sabian symbol for 23 degrees of Scorpio, where the full moon is. And that is a rabbit is metamorphosed into a nature spirit. Okay. And so the symbol of this, I love this symbol as well, is talking about how, a rabbit in a lot of ways, you know, in a lot of different cultures symbolizes sort of the overdoing or overpopulation, right? Because they're so abundant in their population so that some of them survive. And sometimes they overpopulate, and then the predator comes in to cull that out and to make it more manageable, right? And so it talks about, but the nature spirit is one who is overseeing and stewarding and in this stewardship role over nature, helping make sure that everything is in the proper order. Okay. And so it has that same sort of energy. It's just on the opposite side of the wheel. And in the gene keys as well, we have what's called the programming partner. And so it's the opposite, it's the same thing. So this programming partner is 23 degrees of Scorpio here, okay, which is the gene key 43, deafness, the shadow of deafness, the gift of insight, and the siddhi of epiphany. Okay, so you have the shadows. I want to play with this just for a second because I think you'll be able to see how these two Sabian symbols and the two gene keys dance into this. And I've got my hands up here because I'm saying, this is helping us to align. It's alignment. And so the shadow of deafness causes all kinds of complexity. When we can't hear what somebody's saying, or we can't hear what we're saying, we can't hear what, even our own words, then it complicates things. It leads to complexity. And that complexity makes it impossible for us to hear, makes it impossible for us to listen. Okay. But then when we start simplifying, then we clear out that space and we can come into those insights, right? And the more insight we have, the more we realize, we can simplify even further here. We can really hone and refine this down even more. And then it can blossom into that siddhi of, finding the quintessence, and epiphany arises, right? And so there's a lot of different ways of looking at the energy of a full moon. But one of the energies of the full moon is this alignment that happens through an opposition, because they're opposing each other. In astrology, it's called an opposition. It's a challenging aspect. Oppositions are always challenging us to bring both of those energies to their highest frequencies. That's what they're doing. It's kind of, they're on opposite sides of the wheel, and they're saying, can you bring this one to the highest? Oh, well, bring this one to the highest. Then can you bring this one? And you can see they keep rising up. And so the energy of the full moon always asks us to release and let go of what doesn't serve us, so that what really wants to shine through, what really wants to have the light shined on it, can become apparent, can manifest, can come into form, right? So full moon is a beautiful energy for letting go, for releasing, and trusting that what is to come next will then have the space to unfold beautifully. So I just thought, oh my goodness, you can't make this stuff up. It's just beautiful. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go on, and this is gonna feel like sort of a jarring shift because the next Sabian symbol is kind of very different from that. It says a native warrior riding fiercely, human scalps hanging from his belt. Okay. So whoa, that's like that's a very different symbol. And it's really talking about the aggressiveness and the shadow frequency of humanity, like where we have these parts in us that are uh so dangerous and so difficult and so horrendous, really. I mean, we're witnessing it in the world, and we have witnessed it in the world over the eons, right? This is and so it really, that symbol of that rabbit uh, transforming into the nature spirit is also like taking those baser elements of our nature and bringing them up and refining ourselves to a different way of responding and finding a different way to be, and reminding ourselves that energy of the warrior can be utilized in a very, very positive way if if we don't allow just the baser instincts to rule. And so it really is asking for us to come into a different way of operating in the world that that changes that aggressiveness into something more bringing love into it, for one thing, and bringing just a more useful and productive instead of and constructive rather than a destructive energy.
Right. The mind and the ego surrendering to the wisdom of the soul. So the heart and the soul leads, and the mind and the ego can then get on track with the tasks.
Right, right, and come and really refine it, hone it down again to what is the quintessence, what is essential. And so then the final symbol that I wanted to talk about today in this gene key is uh, the Sabian symbol Taurus 25, which is a vast public park. And so here, then you have uh, the cultivation of the natural energies, of even the base energies, the dirt, the soil, the worms, all of it, into this beautiful uh, and useful place for relaxation and expansion and communion with nature, right? But it's a more refined kind of a space rather than a wild landscape. It's cultivated, and how we can cultivate our consciousness and how we can cultivate the essence of who we are to the finest and most um, yeah, most what's the I am trying for the quintessence the most beautiful aspect of our being, coming into the the and allowing the true being of light to shine through uh, ultimately, right? I think that's what we're after.
And that's such an expansive feeling when you talk about the most beautiful being inside. coming through, it just makes me feel that I'm expanding and radiating.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, this is something that I've always talked about with anybody that I'm working with is that we have this, and I call it the angelic self because that's how it feels to me. It's this really, really high frequency being, right? The higher self, whatever, however you want to call it, that that is already there and that shines through in those moments where we have let go and released and allowed ourselves to come to this level of authenticity and um, simplicity and truth, the truth of our being. And it always is coming from love. You know, we can't get there and we can't shine that if we are in fear. It's just not possible.
Mhm.
We have the choice.
I think it's so powerful that you included the phrase, this level of authenticity in describing that, because it's not something that we're reaching for, it's something that we are.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's the quintessence. That's what we really are, who we really are. And when we relax into that, then all of a sudden the shadow becomes the siddhi, right? The wheel's like, oh, I already am what I've been striving for all this, you know?
Right. It's a very different way of stepping forward. We're not trying to create something that doesn't exist. We're trying to open to it, uncover it, expand past all of the chaos and radiate it. So it really is a different feeling than striving to become.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I like how this has unfolded to this point because then we can look at, okay, so how do we do this in our practical lives? Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit, like certainly um, anytime we clean our space, you know, that's beautiful. And I'm noticing, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm moving my hands. I'm always moving my hands when I'm speaking, especially when I'm uh, just allowing the information to flow through me. And this is something that Richard Rudd talks about a lot also in this gene key is that simplicity involves our hands. It involves working with our hands. Like if you spend all day working on the computer, then do something else. Do something else with your hands. It's analog, not digital, right? This working with our hands in some way that's analog, not digital. And I was going to say, and it tried to come out at the same time, like even doing the dishes, you know, or cleaning the space or playing a musical instrument or um, you know gardening, you know doing something with our hands and allowing our hands to show us where to go next, like utilizing them as that, like the finger pointing to the book, right? Because that's the hand as well, right? That finger pointing to the book is pointing to the next powerful information. So I'm wondering what might have come up for you in that, in terms of things that people could do to simplify.
Absolutely. the first thing that came up when we were talking about it is energetically clearing my house. So going around with the sage and energetically clearing my house. And then the second thing that came up was energetically clearing my crystals and then bringing them back inside. But I also am so excited to bring forward the energetic recalibration practice in our next video, because that is really something that we can do every single day, whether they're short energy practices or, getting to listen to a half an hour audio or video and being led through the energy practice. It really does help to clear us out and create that space for our authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. That was one of the things I was especially, especially the clearing of the space, energetically and clearing of our own space internally, right? That's what that energetic recalibration is all about. And that you just said that beautifully, that yeah, we can it's a letting go and a clearing out and um allowing our frequency to just naturally rise, because it will bob like a cork, back to the surface. And yeah, I can't remember who said that, but I think a lot of people have said it. But
That's a great symbol. I love it for us to bob like a cork once we've been cleared. That's great.
yeah, you're down in the depths of it, and then oh, you pop back up to the surface. And yes, the clearing of the crystals and the clearing of our energetic space. I have my selenite crystal ball waiting to come for the energetic recalibration, and it'll go out and bathe in the light of the full moon here shortly, or in a couple days. So
Margaret, do you clear your crystals with sage or just by placing them on the earth?
I clear my crystals by a lot of times by placing them in the sun, uh, but I also clear them with putting them in sea salt and just immersing them in sea salt,
Mm.
uh, sometimes for days. Uh, when I was given when I'm given a crystal, and I don't really know uh, well, whenever it comes to me and it's supposed to be something that I'm going to be working with, yes, I'll immerse it in sea salt, and and it'll tell me when it's clear, and then sometimes when after I've worked with them, if I'm doing it in healing work or something like that, which I'm not doing as much of the hands-on kind of work anymore. But I would always clear it after I would work with it. So
Mm. Yes, yes, I do as well. And, I really do love to put the crystals in the sun. I think that it does an extraordinary job of clearing them and charging them. And the sun here is so hot in Utah that it really lights them up. Well, Margaret, thank you very much for weaving together the symbology of the Sabian symbols, the lessons of the gene keys, and all of your expertise on astrology as well. It's really incredibly insightful and helpful. I learned a lot in, in this conversation today, so thank you very much.
you're so welcome. And yeah, just really, really have fun. Allow yourself to find ways to simplify. It really does open up something incredible.
Awesome. Well, I think that you've inspired all of our listeners as well as myself to go ahead and clear out and simplify. So, thank you very much to our listeners for joining us on the Free to Be Free portal. And please put in the comments what you've been inspired to do this week by these wonderful teachings. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.